Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Nice to see ya. My name is Dustin Cormier. Welcome to How to Rock Astrology. Today we are talking about Saturn transiting the 6th house. Your 6th house in your natal chart. This is a continuation of our reading of Saturn in general on a particular chapter coming from Astrology Karma and Transformation by Stephen Arroyo. This whole series has been about me basically kind of regurgitating this book, talking about what Saturn means in terms of karma and how it is an important key to transformation in regards to whatever it touches by transit or especially natally. The difference being that if Saturn's touching or aspecting something by transit, it's going to affect it very deeply for a short period of time, whereas if Saturn is bumping into something natally, it's going to be a lifetime thing. Obviously. So, welcome. You guys will hear a reading from this book talking about Saturn in the 6th soon. First, I'm going to give my own little spiel about what I feel about Saturn in the 6th means. Stephen Arroyo's book gives a context of Saturn in the 6th as being a continuation of the house preceding to it, which is also a continuation from the house preceding to it. So, Saturn has transited the 3rd house, where we found creative expression from our values developed when Saturn was in the 2nd house. The 3rd house, it found an expression, a life path, a competence, which we found was a comfortable way for us to express and deal and research and manage our energy. And the 4th house built on how we ventilate that energy, how we express that, how we ventilate and move these life path nervous system energies of the 3rd house. The 4th house becomes our domestic surroundings, our community, the people through which we enjoy the 3rd house thing and can relate with people. And this becomes the foundation of our energy, our domestic life, and our heart. We build on our domestic life and the life that we want to live in between the work that we want to do. The other side of the chart, the 10th house in that area, is more about what we do with the energy developed in our domestic foundational root of the 4th house. 4th house is sort of like, how do we enjoy the life we live? The 10th house is, how do we employ the life we live? That's a good one. I should remember that. Anyway, through this domestication of the 4th, through our house, through the people close to us, the 4th house resonates with Cancer in the moon, which relates with our relationships. How do we relate with people? How do we relate with our nurturing? How do we allow ourselves to be nurtured by others while still loving them, while not taking it personally? It's all this nurturing that gives us the energy, the foundation for our energy. And it's this energy that opens up our heart at the domestic level. And it's the opening of the heart in the domestic sphere when we're not trying. This is what allows a certain type of creative expression that relates to our soul nature. And this is what we talked about with Saturn transiting the 4th house. In the 5th house, sorry. The 4th house, domestication, is the container for what becomes the expression of our soul nature when Saturn transits the 5th house. Saturn transiting the 5th says, what am I doing with the energy that I'm holding to myself and in my domesticated life, in my relationships, in my life, in my health? The 4th relates to health in a lot of ways. What am I doing with it all? And this is the 5th house becomes an outpouring of the creative energy that we really live for. Saturn and Aquarius and the 10th house, that's all about what we do to live, how we survive, how we leave a legacy. The 5th house is the true legacy, the spiritual legacy, the soul nature which you've been seeking to express creatively within all the other things that we do. This is Saturn in the 5th. In the 6th house, now Saturn is building on calendrical, habitual, routine habits, physical health things, and even like employees relating with other co-workers regarding our contribution to something greater than ourselves and that we express through others, because the 6th is the 12th from the 7th house. The 6th house is the platform upon which we start to come into the world. We can only meet the world based on the habits, the management of our time schedule, our timetable. And we want to have the reason for this timetable is the 5th house, is our expression. We want to have conscripted channels and outpourings for the creative heart, soul nature energy, which we discovered while Saturn was coming through the 5th. We might have had a writer's block and creative deprivation while Saturn was there in the 5th. Now that it's in the 6th, it is being what we've developed on there through that drought, that spontaneous expression. We've discovered something through which we can enjoy, and is really the real reason why we live. And now we're saying, okay, I've got it. I have this way to express myself. Now, how am I going to bring out the most of this? How am I going to channel and squeeze this heart so I get the most blood out of it? It's a visceral thing to say, but that's where my head was at in that example, I guess. The 6th house, our constant capacity to manage our time with our lovers. 6th house, for example, is very much relating to how we deal with our love interests, so that we get a bit of enjoyment out of our lover, but then we take that bit of enjoyment and we translate it, translinguify it into some other creative pursuit with other people, or we take time to discipline ourselves, to take the lovingness of our creative passion that we've been developing and assimilate it into proper skills that can be used at proper times reliably for people close to us, or for people who depend on us and rely on our skills that we've been employing. Can we conscript ourselves to a job? Virgo, the mechanic. Can we put up a sign in front of our shop every day that says 9 to 5, I will be a working mechanic here? We have millions of other places we can go in the universe, but 9 to 5, I am here and I will be here. And I will manage everything in my life to make sure that I'm here from 9 to 5. In order that I can express as a mechanic what I have taken upon to be my intelligence and discerning skill through the 5th house. You know, let's say again, Virgo risings are often mechanics because Capricorn rules the 5th house, right? So if Saturn for a Virgo rising has been transiting Capricorn, they learned that they want to be a mechanic, and now Saturn transiting the 6th house, they finally say, maybe they've been going through a whole bunch of things. In the 4th, they were learning, they wanted to find a house. In the 5th house, they learned that, you know what, one of the things that I deeply enjoy doing is car mechanics. I've always been a car mechanic. Now as Saturn's transiting the 6th house, they're going to start saying, all right, if I really want to employ this heartfelt mechanic thing that I've been doing, then I need to start putting up a sign every day that says 9 to 5, I'm going to be there. And to stick to that, to stick to promises, to stick to appointments made with people, to go and see this person at their house to fix their car and being there. How important is the 6th house to you? This will determine how many little holes you give for that creative expression that you found while Saturn was in the 5th to come through. How many gates can you supply for that heartfelt soul energy that you've developed? And how easily and how well do you manage your time in your life so that you can conscript to those constant little evidences of your heartfelt passion? This is all 6th house things. You know, so the 6th house relates, it has an affinity with Virgo and with Mercury, because the 6th house, it relates to Virgo because Virgo is the 6th sign. So the 6th house has a number 6 vibe. The key words of the 6th house are health and service. The sixth house relates to health and disease, work, and the service of others. It's the ventilation, the constant checking of our physical body energy, and our routine, our cycles of routine and skill employment that we apply, having the discernment to apply our efforts so that we can get the most, again, out of our fifth house energies. So it does relate to health. It does relate to, if you are not paying attention to your liver or something, and you're eating something with too much salt that's messing with your kidneys or something like that, and your body starts to go, that's going to obstruct your ability to be reliable to all the other people in your life, which act as channels for that fifth house energy. So that's why when Saturn comes through the sixth, you might not be thinking about your health. You might just be pushing it in order to get the most out of that fifth house. But the sixth is a part of the fifth house, which means that as much as you want to just work yourself to death while Saturn is in the sixth, or if you're just a heavy sixth house person in general, if your sixth house is ill-placed, if you don't have a good sixth house, or if the planet that rules the sign of your sixth house is not well placed, if it's got ugly things happening, if it's got bad aspects from enemies and malefic planets, then you won't have an ability to conscript yourself to some kind of logical, solid, rational routine, and you'll lose your ability to express your fifth house, to express your passion that you want to. So anyway, I digress. Those are like sixth house things. What I was saying is that relates to your body. If you don't take care of your body and we whittle it down, you push yourself so hard, then it will explode, it will implode, and you will lose your ability to express the heartfelt energy that you've been developing on through Saturn so far. Saturn in the sixth gives you discernment in the efforts that you put towards these things that add up to your, ultimately to your creative expression. What's blocking your creative light from coming through? What are you not managing properly? What are you not paying attention to? What of your finances are leaking so that you are losing the resources that you need to fully employ the best of your fifth house energies? It's all these little leaks that add up to Saturn transiting the sixth, and Saturn doing a patch job on all these little holes, these physical things, these health-related things, these time-wasting activities. Saturn coming through the sixth makes some cuts and makes some discerning decisions so you can get the best out of your creative energy. And it's actually not one of the hardest transits. This is typically a good place for Saturn because the sixth house is an earth house. It's discerning anyway. It's kind of cutting and constricting in the way that Saturn naturally is. So this could be a difficult time for people in terms of their health if they haven't been taking care of their health. But all in all, in general, Saturn jives to this house pretty well, and that's why it's not often felt as a terribly painful or even directly realizable transit unless the sixth house is particularly placed in a person's chart, and unless the sixth lord is very important in a person's chart, which it very much is for some people. Consider, just for sake of context, this is a Vedic way of thinking. Consider, for a Scorpio rising, Mars rules Scorpio, and Mars also rules the sixth sign from Scorpio. So Mars has a double emphasis of the first house, which is your life energy, as well as the sixth house, which is this constant habitual hacking at things energy. That's how Scorpio gets things done. All the little things that Scorpio does in the sixth house sense of Aries in the sixth house adds up to the full expression of Scorpio as what it is. And Scorpio is the one who silently hacks away at things. You can lose, Scorpio might lose a few battles, and it's like, all right, you know what, I'll give that one to you. I'll give that one to you. Yep, sure, you can take that, but I'm watching the whole time, and ultimately all little mercurial efforts. I don't care if I win the battles. What matters is that I win the war. That's Scorpio's thing. And so all the little things that you do could be very important to the full expression of yourself, for a Scorpio rising especially. But this is just go to show that the sixth, Saturn transiting the sixth, is not always that heavy for everybody, but it is heavier for some people than others. I guess that's my point. So, yeah. So that was my whole rendition of Saturn transiting the sixth. Now we're going to read what Stephen Arroyo says about this particular transit. This is from Astrology, Karma, and Transformation. This is Saturn transiting the sixth house. Saturn's transit of the sixth house is a period of self-adjustment and change in one's thinking, work, and health habits. The person is usually either urged from within or pressured by circumstances to become more organized and disciplined in many practical areas of life, but particularly in work and health. Job changes or changes in work structure are common, as are annoying chronic health problems. I've even seen one person who was notably disorganized and efficient become so much more disciplined in his work methods during Saturn transiting the sixth that he exclaimed, I can't believe how much I'm getting done these days. I'm getting so efficient. Stephen Arroyo is a astrological counselor by trade and profession, and so he deals with a lot of clients, and this is why part of the beauty of his book here is that he has real lived experience by many clients' charts of what happens when Saturn transits the sixth house, or any house. So he's saying that a client of his said, I'm getting so much done, I'm getting so efficient when Saturn transited their sixth, even though they probably had a crappy Mercury or a crappy sixth house and had trouble with that initially. Saturn here in the sixth pressures us to determine for ourselves what it is we are trying to do, and to discriminate between the important and the tangential. In fact, the faculty of discrimination sometimes is so active during this period that the individual suffers from depression or psychosomatic ailments stemming from excessive self-criticism, actual physical venomous vomitings of nervous system impacts from heavy experiences that are too draining to deal with, and that might actually bubble up as like just black vial from your liver that's just undigested emotional psychic energy crap that you just is unexplainable, at least in the physical and anatomical sense. This self-criticism is further motivated by our beginning to see at this time how people with whom we live and work really feel about us. It's because the 12th, as we're going to see. Yeah, I'll just read it. We see whether we are really useful or whether we are considered burdensome. In other words, since the sixth house is the 12th house from the seventh, it's the house just before it's the foundation of the seventh house. We become more aware of the results of the various relationships in our lives when Saturn is transiting the sixth house. The sixth house phase of Saturn's cycle deals essentially with self-purification at every level. Many of the health problems that arise during this period can be directly related to the person's dietary habits and thus to a high level of toxemia. It seems that the body is trying to throw off impurities during this time. And if you don't cooperate with that purification process, physical symptoms often manifest. Saturn's transit through the sixth house is an excellent period for adjusting one's diet, exercise routines, and other health habits, or for engaging in a prolonged fast or purifying diet. The main thing to be aware of at this time is that any health problems or problems with one's work situation are specific lessons showing you what changes are being required of you in the habit patterns of everyday life. and preparing you for another phase of living which begins as Saturn rises over the natal descendant into the 7th house. It's from here that Saturn, karma, everything you've been building on since Saturn was in your 1st house is now finally going to make a grand appearance as Saturn comes through the 6th, gets a grip on the doorways that it has to other co-workers and to relationships and to other people that we deal with. And it's here that everything we've been building up, all of our skills, all that 5th house passion and talent and self-repudiation and capacity are all finally finding some kind of expression in the world. Outside of the foundation, the bottom layer, it's finally emerging to be seen in the afternoon, in the light of the limelight of the public sphere of other people outside of yourself. And now Saturn is going to start learning, how do I take everything that I've learned in terms of myself from Saturn transiting the 1st to the 6th house? How do I take everything in this period and use it constructively in relationship with others while still retaining that of myself, which I learned is important and valuable to me? It's an important part of life. Saturn transiting the 7th is about as important. It's the cream, it's the seed, it's the fruit of everything that's been happening while Saturn's been in the 1st house to the 6th. An important time, and I can't wait to talk with you guys about it when we come back. For now, this has been Saturn in the 6th house. Transiting the 6th house, that is. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Feel free to, for those watching, I think I'm going to take a little moment, do a little bit of an achy breaky, and then we're going to get into the 7th house, Saturn transiting the 7th house. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. For those who have been watching, if you are not a subscriber already, feel free to, like, comment, subscribe, all that shit that people always say, to get you some more numbers for me in my life and my thing that I'm doing. Yeah. And if you enjoyed this video of me talking about Saturn transiting the 6th, feel free to check out the earlier part of this video series. I've been doing these readings on this book, Astrology Karma and Transformation. If you dig what I've said about the 6th house, you might enjoy what else I've gotten from this book, including, Pluto in the natal houses was a good one. And just talking about Saturn in general, what it means, what its archetype and symbol and mythos is, what it is psychologically in the natal chart and in transit to other planets and etc. It was all at the first part of this series, if you're interested. And for those watching live, feel free to stay in touch with me, keep rolling, as I'm going to basically roll into Saturn in the 7th house in our next video, probably in about 5 minutes or so. Thanks for watching, folks. I'm Dustin Cormier with How to Rock Astrology.